G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you are all doing well and surviving the economic situation we have out there at the minute. And just an amazing volume of stuff is going on. Wow. It's actually beginning to amaze me that from week to week we go further and further, into like crazy volatility of everything. It's very hectic. So, outside of Zelensky, pushing for nukes to be fired, it's a very tough time to invest because there's so many unknowns. There's the number of I won't call them black swans, but the number of grey swans is just, there's heaps. There's never this many very impactful single events that can impact all the markets in such a way. So look, it's very hard. We've got to keep looking at everything as much as possible to continue to make our decisions. Being safe through this phase is the most important though. There's no doubt about that. You must try now to look forward 5 years. We could be like this for 5 years. We may not be. We could be much worse. We could be much better. But we need to try to understand the macro setups as much as possible just to get through. We need to be a little bit more defensive perhaps, but let's get stuck into it. A little bit of a finance-based clown world today. They've managed to give Ben Bernanke a Nobel Prize. The guy basically pushed the money printer in 2008, bailed out the banks, crushed hundreds of thousands of families and, individuals' wealth. It was a very bad outcome. He is part of the reason that Bitcoin was created. When he bailed out the banks, that was the last straw for Satoshi, and he said we need to have a system with that's able to survive with no intervention. We need to be able to go through. We need to be able to live in a environment where we can make decisions based on something that isn't going to be manipulated, like old mate Benny Bernanke.
Is that tax money that the Fed is spending?
It's not tax money. The banks have accounts with the Fed much the same way that you have an account in a commercial bank. So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. So it's much more akin, although not exactly the same, but it's much more akin to printing money than it is to borrowing.
You've been printing money.
Well, effectively.
So Jerome Powell and the Fed board, or the chairs, have come out of their most recent meeting. The minutes are, available and you can check them out yourself. Basically, in a nutshell, this headline sums things up really well. And I think we've learned now that what they're saying to us is fact or actually happening. So, you can listen to as much bullish or as much, pivot chat or as much any rhetoric or any narrative that you like, basically. But since November last year, Jerome has literally followed exactly what he said. He said they're going to tighten and it's going to happen and things are going to come down. No one believed him. We lived by the adage for 10 years of don't fight the Fed on the way up. Everyone was cool with it then, but we didn't listen to it on the way down. Perhaps we could have all got out a little bit earlier. And a lot of lessons were learned from everyone, I think. But let's look forward now. So as I said, Jerome is basically saying here, the Fed saw too much action versus high inflation as less risky than too little action. So what that means in a nutshell is they're going to continue to raise rates to fight inflation. That's it. So all of the impacts that we have seen now, they're only just beginning, quite frankly. rates are going to continue up. They'll be well over 4% in America, and they'll be verging on 5 by the end of this. I think the data, the forward markets are showing something like 5.3%, I think, in say February or March of 2023. So they'll definitely go 75 in November, I think. But let's just see what happens. And then I would suggest they'll go 75 again next time because they want to get inflation out of there. And I have a feeling that they're going to continue to do this until they get to their target or until something really breaks. Now, we've got a lot of things starting to get very shaky and break-ish. I'm going to try to go through a few of them today, but it's hard to get across the volume of information to make it palatable. So let's just press through. Thought this was a good little meme though, worth slotting in. Yellen, I mean, we've seen her on video before. She is a fossil who has, she's not worth her weight in the position of Treasury Secretary. And I'm pretty sure that Gary Gensler's trying to get her spot. You heard it here. I'm pretty sure that that's going to happen because the incentives for him to get it are too great. And all the actions that he's taking against the crypto market makes sense. Anyway, let's just see. So on the 11th of October, Yellen said, "I'm not seeing anything in markets that causes me to be concerned." Then one day later, on the 12th, she said, "I'm concerned about the loss of adequate liquidity in treasuries." Now, if you have been looking at any markets, you know well and truly that the treasury market is damn near illiquid because there's no buyers. There's only sellers, and it's a scary time. Now, if that market breaks, they will intervene, I think, but only time will tell. That's only speculation, so we just have to wait and see. Kathy. She is almost leading the charge here. The ARK funds, I've spoken about them before. The ARK funds are high beta ETFs, and they get a lot of money in them because they have volatility. So when things are great and going up, you get good returns, and that's absolutely fine. It makes sense. But she is in a little bit of strife. Her funds are down a very significant amount, of course, and she's penning letters to Jerome Powell saying that they need to pivot. They need to stop and they need to pivot. Now, this is becoming a little bit of a chorus. We've got the IMF saying the same thing. We've got a lot of media, public commentary folks saying the same thing. We've got fund managers now saying the same thing. We've got a few, I think, Congress folks saying the same thing. And Joey B, I don't know how long it's going to be until he says something. But, if things really start to crack, or if, and we'll get to oil in a second, but if inflation persists, and let me tell you, here is something that you need to hear. Inflation is going to persist. It is not going away. It is a supply clusterfuck out there. And Biden has drained all the oil in his reserves. The Saudis know that. They're holding him at ransom. So they're putting the price up. Putin can't get rid of any of his assets. Zelensky's bombing train lines to stop flow of assets from Russia out into the thing. Ukraine can't export some of their stuff. It's an absolute shit show. And energy, we've gone through this. Energy and resources. We go through this every week. I am like a broken record. If energy is not reliable and cheap, and there are these roadblocks into pushing it out to the world market, inflation's going to stay up. It's such a big component of our world that, we just forget. I think we forget it. I think we just live in this lovely world of having energy at our fingertips for anything we want. But it's just not the case right now. Oh, whoopsie daisies. But it's just not the case right now. So, let's see what happens. As I was saying, the Saudi Arabia rejected American requests to delay OPEC plus oil production cut for a month. So basically what's happening here, the Saudis are cutting production. They are cutting production. They're cutting production at the exact time that Biden needs to re-up the strategic petroleum reserve supplies for the whole of America. I mean, it's smart by the Saudis. You can't be angry at them. What rational person can be angry at a country for making cash and doing the things that they want when, if you actually stop and think about what's happened to them, Biden is pushing an insane green agenda. The left, nut job woke folk are pushing a green agenda. And let's put all the oil companies in the same basket here as the Saudis, all the American ones. He will not help them. He's told them that he's trying to phase their businesses out. He wants them to die, as in not be operational. He doesn't want the oil, or the left nuts don't want the oil. They want the windmills and the fucking solar panels and all the crap that doesn't work. So he's been telling them, or the left have been telling them now for years, stop, you're not getting any funding. We've got to make policy hard for you. We don't want anything. We don't want to trade. All these things. Then suddenly, when you need it, these people knew that this was going to happen, of course. When you need reliable energy, eventually you got to come back knocking on the door. And of course, they're going to pants you. This is the nature of life. You put yourself in a vulnerable position. You're going to be at the mercy of others. And Biden has done that with oil. He didn't need to. America has a lot of oil. They just don't bring it out of the ground anymore. It's unbelievable. So along with high oil prices for households, people's mortgages are getting absolutely destroyed. The change is just unbelievable. And basically, as I said last week, everything in this economy is run on refinancing of debt. So basically you have a debt instrument that lasts for X number of years, and basically all you've done for the last 20 years is just roll the debt over with a new interest rate. But you can't do that now because you're going to be paying double or triple. And so what's happening is we're seeing very quickly who is actually insolvent and what businesses have been, negligent with their finances. And if you can't even afford the interest on your debt, and this goes for households, quite frankly, people are going to get caught out here. There's no doubt about it. But look at the volume in the orange box there. Look at the volume up to 2024 of the refinancing costs. It's astronomical. It makes every other time in history on this chart anyway look like nothing, and it is pretty concerning. So over to the UK quickly here. They're in an absolute hole. It's borderline comical to watch this happen. The short-sightedness of all of the decisions that are being made are just it's actually quite frightening. You can see here. These are long-term bonds, but UK, and they're called gilts. So the long-term UK gilt bonds have posted a total return of negative 52.3% since December 2021. This, as you can see from the chart, wipes out an entire decade of gains. Now you might be thinking, Luke, this really doesn't mean anything. I don't own gilts or bonds. And quite frankly, I don't think anyone should own bonds who is an individual investor or whatever. I just think it's an idiotic thing to hold. But in your super fund, in the pension funds, in all of the funds, in everything, in the banks, in everything, they are legislated to hold government crap bonds like this on their books. They don't have a choice, particularly the super funds, particularly the 401k funds, the mutual funds, everyone. They have to have an allocated percentage of bonds on their books. They're not allowed cash in a lot of scenarios. And so people, they don't know it, but retirement funds and pension funds in particular are very vulnerable at the minute all around the world. And, you just hope that people have relied so much on the government and the regulation to back them up. And Australians are particularly vulnerable to this, I think. Australians have a victim mentality in that they want the government to do everything for them and they want them to be backstopped all the time. They'll go to other countries and complain. And in the end, Australia is so small. It's tiny on the world economic stage. It's just so vulnerable. It doesn't even make sense. And we're going to get to China in a second. But with China in strife, Australia's economic future, quite frankly, looks much more uncertain than it did even a week ago. So you can see on this chart as well, this is the 30-year, and this just shows what I was talking about with the intervention. Basically, you can see there on the 28th or the 27th, the Bank of England intervened in the market, and this is the 30-year yield. It intervened, and Bank of Japan has done the same thing. It intervened. They're in the exact same spot, except we're looking, when comparing this 30-year yield to a Japanese yen, it's exactly the same scenario. The governments or the bureaucrats or the bodies intervene, and that's that mark that you can see there on the 28th. The market goes, then because all they're doing is putting a band-aid on a problem, they're not actually attacking they're just putting a band-aid on the symptom, I should say, and not attacking the original cause of the problem. What happens? We go 2 weeks later, we're back to the exact same spot. And they torch in this phase. Japan, England, all of them. They're torching hundreds and billions of dollars. Now, I know what you're going to say. We just heard Ben Bernanke say that we can just print money ad infinitum from the thing. And that's fine. That's fine. If you want to support this action, and I have been raving about this for years, if you want to support backstops, if you want to support intervention, if you want to support propping up weak businesses, if you want to support all that, then you need to be really prepared for heavy inflation. And quite frankly, it's the wrong way to look at things. So you should do some reading and learn the fuck about economics. And I would strongly suggest looking at Austrian economics. And so this is exactly the same as Yellen. These people are morons. So Bailey, he is the head of the BOE, the Bank of England. This is another one day to another. It's absurd. He's like, we're stopping all intervention in 3 days. Pension funds, sort yourselves out. After that, I'm stopping all intervention. Obviously, then, BlackRock, Larry Fink gets on the phone. He's like, listen, pal, you're not stopping the intervention, buddy. You got to keep the wheels spinning, all right? Keep intervening. So what happens the next day? He wakes up with a stiff hangover and goes, they've privately indicated a more flexible approach to the situation. So it's a really funny time. There's so many stakeholders, big stakeholders that we can't even contemplate, that have got fingers in the pie, that are controlling the players in the seats. And in the end, the only thing we can do is pull right back and look at incentives from everyone. And so, it's just got to be, I don't know, you've just got to consider that at some stage soon, there is going to be a tsunami of money printing coming. I'm talking a tsunami. And so when that happens, you damn well want to own Bitcoin. Whew. So while we're on the UK, I always like to talk about houses because that's an asset that impacts people like us, just normal folk, not fucking Larry Fink, just normal folks. And you can see here, this is the UK, but this is very indicative of Australia, the US, everywhere, more so Australia, Canada, and UK. But you can see the multiple. This is a graph effectively showing you the monetary inflation that has occurred. Now, Luke, what does this mean? This means, guys, that, and I'll talk about Australia because that's where I live at the minute. You think that your house has gone up in value by 50% over the last 2 years. Now, what has actually happened is the value of the money units that you use to buy that house have gone down in value. So you need more of the paper shit Aussie dollars to buy the exact same thing. There's been no change. There's no more value in these items. There's no nothing. So don't conflate that the asset has gone up in value. That hasn't happened. All that's happened is it costs more units to buy the same thing. Now, let me give you another example. In a hyperinflation or just a standard inflation country phase, from one day, let's say a loaf of bread costs $5. The day after, the loaf of bread costs $10. Do you think the bread is more valuable on day 2 than it was in day 1? It's the same loaf. It was cooked, on its own individual days. It's identical in everything. Do you think that the loaf is more valuable? Now, obviously, that's a really simple example to see that the truth of the matter is that the value of the currency they're using to buy, the medium of exchange, is getting weak as shit, and it's costing you more of your time to get the same thing. It's exactly the same with houses. Now, also, what is a little bit of a confusing piece for most folks with houses is it's their asset, so they can sell it, and that's correct. But if you sell it, you need to buy another house. So you got to sell in a high market, you got to buy in a high market. So, if you own multiple properties, great, you can sell one and you can take the cash. That's a different story here. But in reality, thinking that you've got gains in your principal place of residence that's actually costing you every year with maintenance, tax, emergency services levies, water expenses. The list goes on. It is technically an expense that you potentially can redeem on in the future. The psychology of Australians in particular, and probably Canadians and probably a lot of other folks around the world, is to support the concept of rising house prices constantly. All it does is over time just create more tension in society because it's a very, very poor way to run things. It's stupid. It's just stupid. Doesn't have a long-term outlook. It might work for a bunch of years, a bunch of decades, but in the end, it's not going to be the outcome. So here we go back over to Japan. And as I said, they're in the same boat trying to go up that creek with England. For the 4th straight session, none of the latest issue of 10-year Japanese government bonds were even traded on Wednesday. It was the longest streak since March 1999 when comparable data became available. So, this bond stuff is out of control. This has been a free money zone for government spending and government basically reckless actions. I don't know. Does all this come to an end? I don't know. What do they do? How much are they willing to print? These are the questions I keep asking myself over and over and over again. How much pain are they willing to endure, and how much pain are we willing to endure before something happens? And by we, I mean society as a whole, or the country's citizens. I don't know. I mean, Australians, they're a joke. So I wouldn't, I should say we're a joke. They ain't going to step up anytime soon. We just saw the example through COVID of how they act in in a time when a little bit of critical thinking is necessary. They don't act well. So I just don't know. It's very interesting to see, and I'm going to keep a very close eye on it. It's damn interesting. So the monthly mortgage payment on a medium-priced home, even with a 20% down payment, is now $2,081. Before 2022, the record high was $1,249. So you can see that, this is just another graph showing you how impactful high rates are in the US. I know they haven't come to Aussie yet. I know they haven't. But they're coming. You can't hide from this, because what's going to happen in Oz is the currency is going to get devalued so badly, and it's just going to cause us more problems in the long run. Let me talk to you quickly about that. In the last 12 months, or maybe the last 13 or 14 months, the Aussie dollar is down 21%. Do you understand what that means? Your everything is 21% down, but your house has gone up. Woo! Who cares? What you should be measuring, your unit of account is wrong. People are living in a dream world. It's a recipe for disaster. We constantly hear about, the strong consumer. It's just a horrific narrative. There's just not good data to suggest any of this stuff. The banks don't even really give enough good data, quite frankly. You can see here, this is the US. Look at the revolving consumer credit owned and securitized debt. It's not good. The credit is going out of control. It's going bonkers. People don't have any cash, so they're using credit, which is doubly bad. And look at their personal savings. It's in the gutter. It's where it was before the financial crisis. And at the end of the day, this is what they're all trying to unwind and you can throw Australia into this basket. We're a G20 country. We're not a G7 country. We're a G20. We're little. We're just a little boy. This is what they have to unwind. This is Ben Bernanke, 2008, the Nobel Prize winner. Benny boy, he got us going on this. He lit the flame of this concept of print till the cows come home and everything's going to be fine. It's just a lot to unwind. And so, we've got to really be worried. This is 26, or at its peak, it was 26.5 trillion. So, who knows how this ends. Over to energy now. I love energy. I love to use energy. I love to keep the lights on. I love having the air cons on. I love energy. I don't care. Energy is abundant. Let's use it up. Let's make our lives better. Greta, ironically, Greta. Greta, the little crusader, the little schoolgirl who politicians took advice from in Europe and subsequently have shot themselves in the foot. Europe is fucked. Let's see what she's saying. It sounds like she's done a little bit of a backflip. Always been heavy against nuclear, but maybe someone's given her a little bit of information about that.
I mean, personally, I think that it's a very bad idea to focus on coal when this is already in place. But of course, it's a very infected debate.
But for the climate issue, are the nuclear power plants the better choice for the time being now?
It depends. If we have them already running, I feel that it's a mistake to close them down in order to focus on coal.
Did you hear that? She wants to keep those nuke plants running. It's not what she said a few months ago. Because ironically, I mean, she was prompted there by the interviewer, but it's obvious. The greenies are actually causing much more problems than much more problems than they know. They can't wrap their head around how many problems they're causing. Their incessant fucking moronic protesting and all the shit that they do, all it's doing is slowing down the adoption of nuclear, which is our only option. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you need to go and do some research. Nuclear is our only option forward, quite frankly. So with all of the regulation and insane negative propaganda against nuclear energy, countries are pumping the coal. India, China, even Europe are refiring or starting reburning coal plants. This is literally like taking 5 steps backwards. It's insane behavior. And, who funds these propaganda campaigns against things like nuclear? I don't know. It could be anyone. It could be the oil companies. It could be anyone. It's just, we could speculate all day. There's no point in that. All we can do is try to educate folks. Everyone. You can educate your brother, your sister, your parents, your family and friends on nuclear energy by just reading a few books. It will make it very clear to you that it is the most obvious answer by an absolute. It's so obvious, it's almost frightening how obvious it is. But, let's keep paying huge prices for our electricity. In Australia, we got a note I see we're going up by 35%, guys. Yeah. No one's complaining about that. I haven't heard a bo peep about people hating on the energy companies. They're taking you to the fucking cleaners. Golly. I guess what's happening with Europe, and off of the back of people like Greta and these idiotic campaigns and these idiotic media pushes, and who knows who's doing these stupid fucking things. But what's happening in Europe? You can see here, they are this year, because winter hasn't technically started, it's technically started, but it ain't cold yet, but it's going to get cold over there. They are going to look at the funds that they're going to pump into support plans for Europe and Germany in particular. These are big numbers. These are incredible numbers of fiscal support for households and businesses, just cash. So let me explain to you the concept from von Leyen, the ECB lady, and Christine Lagarde, the head of the ECB. Sorry, the von Leyen lady is the head of the European, I don't know, I can't remember what she's the head of, but they've just got all these girls in the positions, and it's between von Leyen and Lagarde, one of them. Their concept, are you ready? You're sitting down. Their concept is they're going to make energy by printing money. That's not how energy works. Energy is a physical construct of reality. Printing money is not going to get the job done unless they're going to burn the paper. That's a possibility. Not very green, but you could burn $100 notes. That would give you a little bit of energy, but paying, all it's going to do, guess what it's going to do? It's going to push the prices up. It's going to cause more inflation. It's going to make this whole thing persist longer. The insanity continues. And I think this is just the start of the wheels turning with the insane tsunami. The insane tsunami of money that's going to go out. It's the blind leading the blind out there in the world. It's almost, you've got to go right back to how these people get even into politics or these positions of power. The incentives are so fucking broken and crooked that these people are the worst of us in the end that are actually going for these spots. Name me one who, and I know you want to sit there and think that everyone has got the best intentions. That's not the case. Wake up. Step back into reality. These people only care about themselves. ESG's been one of these big, globalist, Klausy, Schwaby, World Economic Forum messes that has penetrated the world and businesses, and it's, the elite have so much power, people like Larry Fink, with stakeholder capitalism and all this crap now. ESG's become a problem, but in times like this, all that goes out the door, hopefully. And big players are starting to speak up. Jamie Dimon being one. Look, Jamie Dimon, you can't love Jamie Dimon. He is head of JP Morgan, which is the biggest outfit in America, biggest bank. He runs the laundromat, as some folks would say. But what he says here is not far off.
There have been a lot of Lehman comparisons made in recent weeks and months with regards to the fallout from the energy crisis. You are the only Wall Street CEO who was around to navigate the global financial crisis. How worried are you about Europe this winter, given everything that's going on in Ukraine and with the energy supply?
Well, I think we're getting energy completely wrong, which is, ever since this war started, you've known that Europe was going to have a problem, and that it was pretty predictable that Putin was going to cut off some gas and certain oil, and oil price would go up. And by the way, for the climate folks here, it's made the climate worse, because people had this bad assumption that high oil prices and gas prices will reduce consumption, reduce CO2. No, poor nations, India, China, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, are turning back on coal plants, as are rich nations called Germany, Netherlands, France. We have it completely backwards. And in my view, America should have been pumping more oil and gas, and it should have been supported. We're trying to have our cake and eat it too a little bit. And so you have the problem this winter, which it sounds like they've got enough supply to get through this winter. But we have a longer term problem now, which is the world is not producing enough oil and gas to reduce coal, make the transition, create security for people. So I would put it in a critical category. And this should be treated almost as a matter of war at this point, not as nothing short of that. So, people, don't be surprised. Like, I was not surprised at Nord Stream 1 being blown up. I wouldn't be surprised if it's another pipeline or a tanker in the wrong place. And people need to be prepared at this one. And obviously, America needs to play a real leadership role. America is the swing producer, not Saudi Arabia. And we should have gotten that right starting in March. It's almost too late to get it right, because obviously these are longer term investments.
So Jamie's saying a lot of stuff there that, he's saying a lot of things out loud that the elites don't want people to hear. But it's good to hear. It's important to start putting this stuff out there, I think. And Jamie, love him or hate him, he speaks from the cuff. He always has. And he speaks truth. The guy knows a lot because he's the biggest banker in the world. People would tell him stuff. He would know stuff that people just can't even fathom. And, he sees what's coming, I think. We've got tough times ahead, and, energy security is really critical at this stage. I'm loving this. This was a post from Charles Edwards. I've put his actual text in because it's fair enough. And this is a Sketchplanations little sketch. These little post-it note sketch-ups that someone's done. They're really actually great. Good follow on Twitter. There's lots of really useful and interesting stuff there. Charles has said here, record low unemployment, still no signs of recession, and no reason for a pivot this month. Rates will continue up aggressively in the immediate term until the inevitable bullwhip of too high, too fast rates smacks the economy down. Slowly, then all at once. And you can see here, this sketch is bang on. It's bang on. The bullwhip, the real pain is when that final crack hits, when it's at its most volatile, right at the end. Small changes can produce a whip-like effect upstream. All of the retailers over-ordered. The customers got freaked out first. Then the retailers over-ordered. Buy more. Then the manufacturers tried to buy more. And you can see as this bullwhip goes up and down with volatility, eventually things go out of whack. The supply and demand are out of whack now on all fronts. And we are in the makings, the perfect storm for a huge recession. And I think this sums things up pretty well. So hold on to your hats in 2023. So although we've sort of summated most of the world economy now, I really want to jump quickly to China. It's just, they're battling. They've gone back into shutdown. It looks like in a lot of the big, I know Shanghai has just a few cases and they really closed the place down. I'm not sure what their strategy is. It's frightening, quite frankly. They're blowing buildings down that are unfinished. They've got a horrific demographic situation. They're a shocking aging population. There's no youth coming up. The future's not bright for China, and the world should no longer hang their hats on the China boom, or whatever you want to call it, particularly Australia. They will not be consuming anywhere near the volume of resources that they have for the last 10 years. And if you think they will, you've just got rocks in your head. So this lady here does actually a really nice summation of things currently. I've shown you some of her tweets before, but let's have a listen and see what she's got to say.
But I think this idea that this kind of misplaced hope that a lot of people have, that after the Party Congress, we'll get that shift back to pragmatism, that shift back to economic growth at all costs. That's not going to happen. The Xi era is very much here to stay. Everyone knows that she is going to secure a third term as president. That's very much baked in. For me as a journalist, because China policymaking is so opaque, completely different to what you're used to here in Washington, we try to read the signs, and the signs very much indicate that we're not going to get a zero COVID policy, pivot right now. Most expectations are for March 2023 at the earliest, and it will be slow. It will be a lot slower than we experienced in Hong Kong. The property market, that is something that is, it's not accidental. It's a deliberate restructuring of a very problematic part of China's economic growth. It's a bubble. China's trying to do something that no government has ever done successfully, which is to pop a bubble without destabilizing the financial system. Again, I'm not commenting on the results, but let's see what happens there. And also...
So basically, in a nutshell, she is suggesting that with Xi in command, or future command, it sounds like, their current tack is going to remain the same, which isn't great. His popularity is going down. It's going down hard. Their property sector is shot. We've known that for months now, months on end. I would say that they're going to have there'll be constant attempts at capital flight from China. It's hard to see how they're going to get out of this, as she suggested, but you can only hope that they work out a way to navigate their massive debt loads. Navigating debt is just one of the most difficult things ever. So, fingers crossed.
The latest lines from the People's Daily saying that China must stick to the COVID zero policy, that it is a sustainable way forward for growth.
Yeah, I agree with Marco. What he said is that there are signs of relaxation, generally speaking, but nothing's going to happen between now and the Party Congress and through the Party Congress. A 180-degree turn on COVID zero is simply not going to happen. In fact, it might even get worse. And that's what I've been kind of saying for quite some time now. As we head up to the Party Congress, which starts on Sunday, you're going to see local municipalities and provincial leaders worried that they could get blamed if there's a resurgence resurgence of COVID, and that's what you're kind of seeing across China and Shanghai. Yes, the worries are resuming because districts like Minhang District, they've been restricted to their compounds, residential compounds. There were a total of 1,878 new cases found on Sunday after a week-long holiday, of course, people coming back, and there's new cases. Shanghai had 34 cases reported on Sunday, 2 found outside of the quarantine system. So several districts have been found to have, barricades put up around residential compounds. There's even one city in Shanxi province, Yongji. It did not have a single COVID case, but the entire city of 400,000 people has been put into lockdown because authorities there are worried of those returning residents from the holiday could spread the virus to them. So that's the extreme measures that authorities are taking across China.
But I will leave you there, guys. We've gone long enough today. Plenty to think about, plenty to keep looking at. There'll be another video out soon because it's just, as I said, there's just so much happening. So, if you've got anything or a country or anything at all that you would like some focus on, I'd love to do some stuff that you want to learn more about. I can try and dig up some bits and pieces and put it together. So just comment below. I'll do my best. Thank you again for watching. It is really appreciated. Big credit if you've stayed this far, and hit the like button. It would be really appreciated. Stay well, guys. See you soon. Look after yourselves.